We'll be back from the break. You're still watching Smart Men's Business, your daily kickstarter. Manju Barija with Masi Katsumi, and of course, just right now we join with Joram Sonko. Definitely, we shall be having very interesting discussions, of course, in relation to the state of the nation's address this morning. Well, the markets on the Zabo platform, just a few minutes left. Cause they open at 8:15 now. If it's 3 minutes past 8, man, that indicates it's 12 minutes left for the markets to open. Now, for you to be a part of this, simply there, start tonight, see hash, and you will be available with quite lots of options where you can choose to buy government bonds or securities for as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Yes, 15,000 you can invest, and make yourself quite some good profit. Now the markets open Monday up to Friday, except on the weekends or the public holidays when you can access these markets. But at least, despite all that, you have some days to capitalize and make yourself quite some huge profits. And I will guarantee you that life will not be the same again. Regardless of where you're located, you are in position to actually own government bonds. There is no paperwork actually involved. That was simplified for that. Now, Zabo simply says, my money, my future. And Altex East Africa says, do something new. Well, just right about now is the hours you get inspired as a young entrepreneur, vibrant, like I always say, as we head straight to the business tips and quotes. Well, I would love to say the business quote. It was quite very interesting when they said logic will take you from A to B and imagination will take you around the world. So choose where do you want to be. Yeah, you want to think in terms of mathematics, figures. Well, there is an end to that, but of course when you have an imaginative aspect, it will be very, very possible. Well, now, as right about now, let's get into our social media trends. And of course, this time around, the topic, of course, is going to be dwelling on the State of the Nation's address, which is scheduled to take place today at exactly 2 p.m. when the president will be, of course, giving us accountability for the year 2022. Let's get into these trends real quick. Yes, of course. This is government of Uganda. Tomorrow, 7th of June 2023 at 2 p.m. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni will deliver the State of the Nation address at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds. And of course, it's going to be live on all TV and radio stations. So you gotta tune in and really get to listen and see what he has to tell the nation. Of course, there are quite lots of anticipations of what people might think is going to talk about. Now, still, the government of Uganda, in the previous State of the Nation's address, President Yoweri Museveni said that the global crisis brought plenty of opportunities for Uganda, since many of the products that countries, okay, that's regarding to that. And now here we see that regarding the risks on the production side, as far as agriculture is concerned, President Museveni said that the biggest challenge to the country currently is weather. He, however, said this can be solved if stakeholders adopt irrigation. That is the sector players in agriculture. Yes, so weather being an issue.
We said this in the previous week. We talked about global climate financing, and of course this is Africa fact zone, and it says Uganda's president says he won't he isn't moved by the threats to cut aid from the Western.
From the stand countries. This is at East Facts. It says we shall move if they cut aid, and we shall sit down and display our expenditure. Rearrange our budgets. That's the bigger picture in there. Cutting expenditure, trim our expenditure as one of the ways, of course, which this is at Eddie Khan's Smart 24. He says President Yoweri Museveni will tomorrow, 7th June 2023, deliver to Parliament the State of the Nation's address at Kololo Independence Grounds. And of course, the address will mark the opening of the third session of the 11th Parliament. And this will be broadcasted live on Smart 24 TV. Yes, we shall be giving you the live broadcast all the way from Kololo. As the President will be passing out this particular address. Accountability. And now this is at the State House, Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni hosted the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of Parliament, of course, ahead of the annual State of the Nation's address. Yes, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of Parliament.
This is very interesting. They are shaking hands. I don't know the last time I saw him shaking hands.
Yes, State House, Uganda with that. Then this is at Parliament. Of course, Article 101 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda says the President shall, at the beginning of each session of Parliament, deliver to Parliament an address on the state of the nation. Yes, of course, that is it regarding our social media trends. What's really trending? It's the State of the Nation's address, the long-awaited day, definitely, which we've been waiting for, of course, which comes ahead before the reading of the national budget. But of course, in our discussion this morning, we shall be taking a look at what the members of Parliament, to whom, of course, part of the stakeholders that need to be addressed to, need to be accounted before, regarding how the country spent in the previous year and what are the anticipations for this year 2023 State of the Nation's address. Let's get into this discussion. So definitely we shall be returning back for further analysis.
We have given a benefit of doubt to the President before and listened to him, watched him speak, attended the session of the National Address before. We have come to a conclusion that we have two countries in one. A country that Museveni speaks for, different from the country we know. That he comes to speak about progress, increased incomes, peace, security, employment opportunities, very many jobs, and us who stay in Uganda, who drive around this country, who talk to the people of this country, we realize that the state of the nation that the President is talking about is different from the one we live in. So, and you have a State of the Nation address, which according to the rules, the President must be listened to, because we know the state of the roads. He will speak about something else. We know the state of the hospitals. He's going to speak about something else. We know the state of poverty in this country. He's going to talk about something else. So why do we go to listen to what we believe is not right?
There is what the President would want to talk, but there is also what the people expect. So you want to ask me what the people expect, or what I expect myself. Me, what I expect is that the President will address the biggest challenge of the economic performance of the country, because we cannot collect money and our budget is not balancing. Even when we borrow, we remain with a shortfall. So the President is going to appeal to the country to spend sparingly. All institutions must spend sparingly, not to be extravagant, because there is no money and the economy is doing very badly. That's the issue the President will be talking about. Another issue the President will talk about was a national disaster that happened where in Somalia we lost more than 50 people. The President will give account and condole with families. That's another issue the President will be talking about. And another issue the President will be talking about will be the punishment model, which is very, very important. He will try to explain how far they have gone, because it started the other year. Now we are into the second year. So the president will be talking about how it has performed and put other measures to make sure that it's successful. Of course, the president cannot talk without talking about corruption, because you can see that corruption in decision-making institutions, or for those people who take decisions, there is corruption, and they are taking decisions when they are motivated by corruption. So the president should be telling us not to talk about it, but tell us what he wants to do and how many people maybe he's going to sack in the next year. Because his performance should be in how many people he has punished, either by court or by politics. When you are fighting corruption, you don't need court evidence. You need political evidence, which he already has. So we expect him to, after addressing the members and the country, in about maybe a week or two, he should show evidence that he has punished people who are corrupt. And another issue he's going to talk about is the environment, how the environment degradation has taken place and climate change effects, and how he intends to enforce or put in place the mechanisms to mitigate the environment. Those are some of the things I think the president will be talking about.
Address would be that this president would come and tell us the state of health. How are we standing as a country? The state of the economy. How are we? How is the economy standing? Are we doing well? Do we have problems? What is the difference between the state of the economy then last year in June and now? How are the roads in this country? How are the hospitals? It is not a day to talk about NRM. It's not about a day to talk about how you went to the bush. It's about a day to tell us the standing. And so we expect him to tell us whether the country is poorer or richer as we talk now. Do we have, is the number of the poor increasing or reducing? The state of, the standard of living, is it improving or not? How many, what about the state of employment of the young people? Because we know the doctors are demonstrating, the interns are demonstrating. We have provided less money for education. The state of Kampala is a pothole town. So for you to come and paint a different picture, and then for me, I am there and listen helplessly because I cannot even ask you a question.
Things that the people expect him to talk about, his priorities, informed by his intelligence sources and the political sources like NRM. But it's also what people expect that affect them. Now, whenever you hear that the president has not talked very well, there is a mismatch on expectations. So there is what the president wants to impress people, that he has performed very well in these sectors, but people who have supposed to receive the services we talk about may not have received them now. Like in my place, when the president talks about punishment model, maybe in the North has been there, maybe in Masaka, maybe in the Central Region. But as far as I'm concerned, in Ichoro district, in Buchimbiri County constituency, we haven't seen much. We are seeing a lot of talking, but practically there is nothing. So there might be a mismatch between what people expect and what the president thinks that people want him to talk about. That's another issue which is very important.
Well, lots of the different members of parliament expressing opinions in regards to, what is the president going to talk about in the current state of the nation's address. But of course, as we've seen, some of them a little bit grieved, with, of course, according to what, they think, that the president doesn't really speak about what's really happening on the ground. Well, at this time, I'm joined with Joram Paul Sonko. We joined with Joram Paul Sonko as we're going to be dissecting a little regarding this matter of what we should anticipate in the state of the nation's address. But of course, Joram, good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, and many thanks for the opportunity, I should say. But I think I would first of all agree with Honorable Mwenjuche when he mentions that at times you get to realize that during the State of the Nation address, the president always has a different picture of what they expect. Okay, in most cases, he believes that there is something about what he expects the president this time around to address is addressing matters that are rotating around what we are actually seeing, because regardless of the fact that we want to look at the progress or the employment opportunities that we want and what the president intends to at least give an answer to in the next financial year, we as well want to at least hear about the current kind of situation that we are living in the country. For example, if you have to look at the fact that we are facing issues to do with the gun violence that is rising lately.
Absolutely.
Not only that, now you look at the issue to do with the signing of the anti-homosexuality law, and of course I do as well expect the president to at least say something about it, and also to at least enlighten Ugandans more about about the sanctions that are being threatened onto us, but then also the issue to do with security, which is always a priority in our national budget. But then this time around, we have to look at it in a situation that is very critical, because as a country, right now, every other week, we are reporting cases of gun violence. So I think the president will have to mention a thing or two about this and what the government is intending to do in order to curb the situation. But obviously, and also looking back at what he actually promised during his State of the Nation address last year in 2022. So by the look of things, it is more of, first of all, trying to give us an outlook of what has been achieved regarding what he mentioned last year, and then what he's looking forward to, and then the state of the nation. Because when you look at the fact that it's called the State of the Nation, you expect the president to put us into context with the events that are currently happening within our country. And that way we are fitting in, because we already know what is happening on ground, and we just want to fit in directly. So I think it is the same kind of situation. Wide still looking bigger for us in the next financial year, but it's not something we would expect the president to mention more about in such situations, but rather taking us through, first of all, you look at our inflation, which is actually dropping, and of course he has to be giving us details about the key drivers about the same, and then also looking at issues to do with the corruption sagas and everything. These are some of the things that have been piling, and the president will highly be expected to mention a thing or two regarding the same. But of course, it is a State of the Nation address, and we do expect, at least this time round, to at least get to know, to hear or listen to what the president has to say in regards to what we are already seeing. Because we want to at least know that he is seeing the things, and he has solutions, or he is creating solutions together with the government, or together with his cabinet.
Of course, most people know when it comes to the State of Nation address, it's usually controversial to what people think, what us, the people think, and of course the legislators and everyone. Of course, I think the president actually gives a report according to what he has been presented, So in most cases he addresses these issues in the meetings he always has. When it comes to corruption, he gives a little bit of hint about it, and of course by the time it's State of Nation, he feels like it has to address something different. How the country is progressing, and of course positive energy and expectations for our people right there. For the Ugandans right there. But of course I believe if at all he could get into the minds of us as people, I think he could get to feel how we feel and look into the matter. Because these members of parliament were disgruntled, and of course at times you listening, you're like, okay, what is happening? I expected A, B, C, and D. So we have to, as a country, to lessen our expectations, and of course keep in mind with the challenge that we are facing, and of course him giving us his view on what is happening in the country. We as individuals, as government entities, take it upon ourselves to make sure whatever is happening, we are seeing on a daily make sure that we bring it to a standstill.
Okay, very interesting in there. And of course, President Yoweri Museveni said last year's State of the Nation's Address 2022, he actually said Uganda will process coffee, oil, and iron ore locally in order to improve on revenue the country gets instead of exporting commodities for just peanuts. Some of the aspects that he mentioned. Now, he also promised to engage Parliament in that is opposing government's plan, that is to process the coffee in a deal with Uganda Vinci Coffee Company. Now, the president said that it was one he was interested in as the company in coffee after he realized that how much the country was losing from exporting just raw coffee. So, of course, now these are the matters that we need really to sit down, experts, and we get to see how far have we gone in terms of achieving this. You know, I don't really care. We may not have really reached there to the maximum of full execution, because sometimes we have wrong mindsets. If somebody says that, you know, 2022, this is what I'm planning to do, it doesn't mean that if it doesn't come to pass, it has failed. You know, Joram, we need to also see that there is a process of implementing something, and you know, I mean, there is a framework laid down. It's like how you plan a project out there. The bigger picture in here is as something being done about which was mentioned, or it was said and it was left there. So, well, that's one of the major concerns of Ugandans.
I think, Andrew, like you said, I think the area of implementation is where things like go wrong. You know, someone says something, but implementation, you don't know what happens right in between that process. Everything gets messed up. At the end of the day, no work done. I feel like implementation should be a part where much emphasis is supposed to be put. Implementation, and of course, after that, delivery. I mean, it's so absurd when you come up with a plan, and when it comes to how so far you have progressed, there is something went missing in between there, and you cannot account for what really happened, and no one knows, and the people around are not really aware on how it really happened. It's so absurd. And of course, you as a leader, you're wondering, where did I go wrong? But of course, the people you delegate usually disappoint. The people we delegate as leaders disappoint. So definitely it's upon you as a leader maybe, and of course to look into the matter. But of course, those people that are delegated also let us down at times.
All right, that is true. Of course, there is not the auditing framework. Sometimes it's not really the best. And recently, how I wish we could adapt, all the state corporations in the country would adapt the NEC operations, because they are one of the people that have been known to execute things timely, you know, when it comes to the way the accountability status into that corporation is very amazing. I wish the state corporations would actually get some clues regarding that. And I mean the National Enterprise Corporation, the commercial arm of the UPDF forces, that have really demonstrated that aspect of a completion of projects on time. Well, it's 26 minutes past 8. You're still watching Smart Men's Business. You're the Kickstarter. I'm Andrew Barija with Marcy Katsime and Jerome Paulson here to drive your business this morning. Well, right now let's get into a short break. And definitely when we return, we shall be taking a look at what's happening in the world of entertainment and sports.